Welcome to another episode of TeeVo and the Beard.
I know you can't see it, but I'm TeeVo, and that's the beard.
Today we're going to start out kind of backwards. We're going to give you a preview for next week's episode before we get into our spoiler-full Star Trek review. That way, if you haven't seen the movie yet and want to before we ruin it for you, you can still hear what we're going to be talking about next week, which is actually a very exciting topic also. Timmy, do you want to let them know what we'll be talking about?
Well, we are doing, hopefully, a full-on Suicide Squad review.
Definitely.
And why I say hopefully full-on, meaning I will see it. I don't know if the beard will be able to see it, but I hope he will.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed. If not, I have seen Sinister Squad, which has to be, it's by Asylum Films, the same people that brought us Sharknado, so it has to be the exact caliber. You know?
I think that should be another review.
We'll definitely
just for you. Just for you. And
you can review Suicide Squad, I'll review Sinister Squad. We'll see how they compare.
Exactly. But today, yes, we'll be predominantly talking about the new Star Trek films, Star Trek Beyond. But first, I wanted to talk about Comic-Con.
Yes.
That thing that happens every year where it's the Comic-Con.
Yes.
And
even though they talked very little about comics this year.
They do not really. But you know, it's all a name, but it's related in its essence.
Right.
And what I love about Comic-Con is the announcements, because that's when they unveil new exciting things, or to some people, horrible things.
Yeah, but I don't recall there being anything quote unquote horrible this year, but yeah, definitely some that weren't as exciting as the things
you know,
there's
sometimes there are fans that don't like certain predominantly exactly predominantly casting when they announce it. But this year, you're right, there were very little things that if at all, I didn't like. So.
Yeah. But what are a couple things that really stood out to you?
I think the first thing we should just, mention, Wonder Woman trailer.
Yes. If you have not seen the Wonder Woman trailer, pause this, go look at it.
If we were fancier and you could actually see us, we would play it for you.
Right.
We do not have those capabilities right now. So we're just going to talk about it. Yeah. Initial thoughts.
My initial thoughts is it is more than I was expecting.
How so?
I've always been a Wonder Woman fan, so I was going to go see it regardless of how the preview looked.
Right.
I expected it to either be modernized, even though I know it's a prequel, quote unquote, to BVS. You can still be modern and be a prequel there.
Right.
I also thought that it was going to be the same rehashing World War II, Steve Trevor sort of thing. And it does have Steve Trevor in it, and I do enjoy the casting for that. I think he's going to be great comic relief. But to stay with our PG-13 rating, this is about the most badass you've ever seen Wonder Woman on a screen.
And, as rightfully it should be.
It should be, yes.
I remember I can't remember if she was unveiled at Comic-Con, but I remember the unveiling of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Right. There's so much black, and I don't want to get into the whole debate on that, but I just remember thinking, to me, she's perfect. Wonder Woman was never that insanely buff, masculine woman. No. People assume Wonder Woman should be. She's an Amazon.
Right.
She's a demigod. She doesn't need to look like she can kill you. She just will. Yeah,
because unless you're looking at certain short runs of comics, she had a very normal look to her. She didn't look.
I think that's one of the reasons that is incredible about her. Is that it's not saying, oh, you have to be jacked up like She-Hulk,
right?
To be powerful. You can just be powerful,
right?
How you are. I mean, sure, the demigod thing helps, but I think
but she's a superhero, so we had to have something.
Yeah, the physical appearance is that, and,
right?
And that's why when Gal Gadot was cast, and seeing her in costume, but even before seeing her in costume, it was pretty much great.
Yeah,
that's I wouldn't have picked her personally, but. Now that you did, I don't have a problem.
Well, like we've discussed before, I didn't know anything about Fast and the Furious and all that, so I had never heard of her before this. And the only thing I had a problem with when they first announced and showed her was the original layout for the costume that was all brown.
Yeah.
I hated the costume. Didn't mind the person in the costume, just hated the costume itself. But now and especially with this preview.
Apparently DC films have a problem with color.
Yeah.
When you see it in Batman vs. Superman, it's a little more colorful.
Yeah.
And then in the Wonder Woman trailer, it's more colorful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a prequel, so it's before it gets all,
But still, it's
worn
like,
and
it's like,
tarnished.
wow, DC, is someone fire your color guy?
Well, maybe they hired one from Marvel, and that's why we're getting brighter things.
Possibly,
now.
because, Batman vs. Superman, this is a dark movie, not in tone, but literally. It was very dark.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree, to that extent. Like, I was like, I like the costume. I have a feeling this is not what it's going to really look like.
Right, yeah.
And thankfully, it did.
Yeah. So, of course, DC is the first one out the running here with a female-led superhero film. And we've known about the Wonder Woman movie for a while now.
Yeah.
We knew that was coming.
But the fact, and I think it's just so weird that it's only till 2017 when it comes out. Will be the first time ever that Wonder Woman. There has been no even crappy movie of it.
Yeah.
No,
that's
no TV movie. I mean, aside from Linda Carter being, this TV show Wonder Woman, and various cartoon appearances, we've not had a long-standing Wonder Woman.
Right.
And I think it's so weird.
And I could go on for a whole episode worth of a rant of our lack of females being present in the forefront there. Even before I became a father of a daughter, I felt that way. Am I too squeaky over here?
Well,
Since we're recording this late, I'm also not going to really edit it down, so people are going to hear the behind the scenes of TeeVo and the beard there. Okay, there we go.
But yeah, it's. I always thought that was weird because she was always revered as Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman was revered as a trinity.
Right.
Yet there's so much Batman, there's so much Superman, and there's very little comparatively of Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
too much Superman, in my opinion. I like Batman.
I always thought that was a weird thing. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's that.
But at least DC is starting it, and now Marvel is going to come up from behind with
Captain Marvel, for me, I'm a relatively new fan of Captain Marvel. I started reading Captain Marvel when Kelly Sue DeConnick took over the comic. And what I knew about Captain Marvel was she used to be Miss Marvel. She used to be Carol Danvers, and the only thing I knew...
Not to be confused with the Danvers sisters of Supergirl.
Which is so weird.
Yeah.
Carol Danvers was, Miss Marvel, and the only thing I really knew about her was she had alien-like powers, and Rogue sucked her dry. Mm-hmm. That's how Rogue was able to fly and be strong and all that stuff. That's all I knew as a kid, so it wasn't until...
That's the basics of it right there, yeah.
Well, that's all they really gave her.
Yeah.
You had to be really into comics to know a lot about Miss Marvel. Mm-hmm. But it was until recently that, when she took on the mantle of Captain Marvel, that I started becoming a fan. And almost for the same reason as Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. She's not portrayed as a big, strong, muscly, physical woman.
Right.
She's a woman, an average woman who just is this, again, badass, space fighter.
Basically, yeah.
And I just like that. And the way, at least when Kelly Sue DeConnick wrote the comic, she didn't portray her as, a cold or, emotionless, hero.
Right.
She had a lot of layers to it. She had, I hate to use it in terms like this, but she had, regular female problems, am I good enough to take care of this, She had a relationship with, War Machine, there were concerns like that. So it just gave me a lot to really grasp onto. So when they announced that they were going to make a movie, I was like, okay, great. I want a good actress. And for those who didn't see the Comic-Con announcement, we got Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, which...
Now give them time to Google that for a minute, because not many people know her by name.
Yes, that's true. But if you've seen... Look up Academy Award winner Brie Larson.
Yes.
Or
Brie Larson, Scott Pilgrim.
That's true. Or Brie Larson, 21 Jump Street.
Yes.
But for me, I've been a fan of Brie Larson since I saw her in Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
I just thought she had a pretty cool thing about her. I was like, oh, that's a cool actress. I want to know more about her. Then she was in 21 Jump Street. I was like, wow, that's so much different than Scott Pilgrim. Mm-hmm. Cool. And I've been a fan ever since. And so... my only concern was, when she was rumored to be Captain Marvel at the time, was I'm older than Brie Larson.
Yeah.
And it would be the first marquee Marvel headliner that I'm older than. And I was like, okay, that's this is not a problem. It's like, okay, but she's a good actress, and by the time they actually film it, she'll be older.
Right. And so will you.
And I will be too. And I think that's going to be, okay. And then I thought, well, Margot Robbie, which I think I'm as old or older than Margot Robbie, is playing Harley Quinn. And let's we not forget the character Harley Quinn is a doctor.
Right.
So if,
Margot Robbie, not a Doogie Howser doctor.
Not a Doogie Howser doctor. She's not, some teenage love fest for the Joker. She's a real,
She's a woman.
She's a real woman who hopefully went to med school.
Yeah.
And,
Well, as far as the comics are concerned, she did.
So. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like I said, she's about my age, and she seems to be pulling it off. I have no doubt that Brie Larson can do this. Yeah. They don't have a director yet, but they do have writers. Nicole Perlman, who co-wrote Guardians of the Galaxy with James Gunn. I think she did maybe the first draft, and then James came in. I could be wrong in that, but I know she was involved.
Yeah.
And Meg LaFauve, who also won an Academy Award recently for Inside Out. So they got incredibly talented people so far. Yeah. I have no doubt they're going to get a really good director. They're not even close to filming. I think they just be like, okay, fine. You keep asking us. Here it is.
Yeah.
Now leave us alone for a while about this point.
To do a small rant in there, I just hope that the people who are in charge actually running it have read comics.
Yes.
So we don't have a repeat of Ultron.
Well, you got one girl who, wrote Guardians, and she seemed to. I know, James Gunn probably put more of his own spin to it, but if you made at least, part of it, I feel like
Guardians, though, they had a little bit of more playroom with because it was
true. But I think this one does too, because not many people are going to know her. That's true. I think there's going to be, unlike Wonder Woman, where Wonder Woman has a long history.
Yeah, there's very little playroom at all there.
Exactly. So with Captain Marvel, you might just know of it now, but I don't think anybody's going to be as invested like Wonder Woman.
Right. Okay.
So women's power.
Yes, we're very pro female here on TeeVo and the Beard.
Yes. Now the main event.
The main event. We're going to talk about the ever-loved space adventure here that everybody has recently seen, and
Star Trek Beyond.
Oh, we're not doing Voyager or Deep Space Nine or
oops. I don't know those things.
Okay, we're going to do Star Trek Beyond. That way we can stay in both our wheelhouses.
Yes.
There.
Yes.
So, of course, if you're familiar with Star Trek, and again, this will be spoiler full, so we're not going to hold back anything. It's not really that if you're a fan of Star Trek, I don't think there are that many spoilers in this. If you are familiar with any of the actors, I don't think even the big quote-unquote reveal in there is a huge spoiler. But just in case you've been living under a rock, hit stop now, go watch it. Okay, so if you're familiar with Star Trek, you know that it's about Captain Kirk, his crew on the USS Enterprise. They're going to seek out new life, new civilizations, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And this continues with Beyond. I really enjoy how Beyond starts because it starts with a captain's log, and it starts unlike the other two movies did, where it's showing kind of the day-to-day stuff that the crew is going through. And in fact,
but it was nice to see. I agree, it was very nice to see the captain's log, but it was the first movie where they were actually going on a real, excursion. So it's just nice to see the progression of this crew, from really their beginning to where they're at now.
And I like that it starts straight in because of course it was directed by or co-written by Simon Pegg, who is the Star Trek fan. Yeah. I know nothing compared
or
to
just
him.
Really anything nerd fan.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't realize that the director, whose name escapes me right now,
Justin Lin,
is also a Star Trek fan.
Okay.
So I didn't know that till after seeing Beyond, and now watching it in my head in retrospect, I'm like, no, that totally makes sense now.
I did not know that, but good. Well, it showed.
Yeah, because right out of the box, they're making references. I mean, the fact that they're into their third year of their mission, which is when the original series got canceled.
I didn't know that.
You see that Captain Kirk does not actually wear the same outfit every day.
I thought that was a really cool thing.
That I literally LOL'd at the theater when you see every hanger has the same color shirt.
It's like when you watch cartoons and they always wear the same thing. You wonder
Yeah, it's just every outfit looks exactly the same.
And then I think that I love that. You ever see Nickelodeon's Doug, where he too, just like in that scene in Star Trek Beyond, opened his closet and every single outfit is the same thing.
Well, that settles it. We need a Doug Star Trek crossover. Somebody draw that, make it happen.
But first the Power Rangers.
But first the Power Rangers versus Star Trek. Yeah. But I also like that Kirk, even in his captain's log, says that it's starting to feel episodic.
Yes.
And I like those little touches like that, where even if you're not a diehard Star Trek fan, you get what he's saying. You get what's going on there. If you've ever watched TV before.
Credit to Simon Pegg and, I'm sorry, other guy who wrote this. Doug, it's coming to me. Doug Jung.
That sounds correctish.
And, for writing, it that way. And even credit to Chris Pine, because, you really feel that, you're jumping right into the gate of this movie. You kind of feel where he is.
Yeah, he feels like a worn-out captain.
You just connected. And that's a really good sign of, character development. You feel it.
Yeah, and this is actually one of those movies where I'm glad, even though it's been 2009 to 2013 to now, of course, all the actors are getting older. And it's been more than 3 years in the real universe. But they don't try to make any of the actors look younger. No. They don't try to make them look like it's just been 3 years in the movie. And I think that really works for a movie like this, because if you've lived your regular life 3 years, you're going to look slightly older, yeah. But if you've been living aboard a spacecraft and you've been going on these missions and doing all these heroic things, you're going to look a bit older. It's going to wear you down a lot more. And I think that great job to the makeup and hair and all that for not trying to make them look younger, making them look worn out in a natural way.
Gotcha. Well, as the non-Trekkie here, I loved it. It was a fun movie, and that's really all I wanted, was a fun movie. I didn't want to get confused in too much Star Trek mythology that I, don't know. And I'm glad it didn't do that. I mean, if you're telling me right now there are things they allude to, I'd be like, oh, well, I didn't get that, but that did not ruin the movie for me. Standouts to Chris Pine, standouts to the writing, for particularly mixing characters up that you don't see normally together. Yeah,
I really enjoyed the pairings that they did.
Yeah, with Chekhov and Kirk, you don't really see that. They introduced a new character, Jayla, and she was toting around mostly with Scotty.
Right.
And you see,
because Scotty is a writer, and if you're a writer, you get the hot girl to be around you in the movie.
Yes, exactly.
That's movie writing 101 right there.
And Bones and Spock. How often
I felt like I was watching original series Star Trek, watching them, and it was awesome.
Yeah, like how often do you see that? And then you saw Sulu in Uhura, and so I just like that. For maybe a third or fourth of the movie, it was these two paired off. It was all of them paired off in different directions. And when they came back together, you really felt the reunion.
Right, yeah. And also it gives you more to watch, more to care about during the movie, instead of just
here's all of them in the show.
Right, yeah, and that's good for like the origin story and for the con story, but we all wanted something the same but different going into this. And I think that it really delivered, and the new characters, new aliens. Supposedly there are 50 new alien species in this movie. I've not counted them. I'm going to take their word for that.
I don't know. For me, again, non-Trekkie, I don't know if that was ever a alien they explore, but the one with like the spines on her head.
The like backwards face hugger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And what a great, for who haven't seen it, or who have, I don't know. But I'm talking to you, but there was a scene where the bad guys are looking for some kind of a token, and Captain Kirk hit it with this female alien, and she hit it in the back of her skull.
Basically,
yeah. When she revealed it, you saw again, almost like a backwards face hugger. It opened up, and you saw it was holding what Kirk was hiding, and I was like, "That's so cool."
That scene was one of the actual big reveal surprises to me, because the little token it basically starts a weapon of mass destruction. The crew doesn't really know that at first, but Kirk knows that it's important, so he has to protect it. And when the Enterprise gets destroyed,
generally when someone is killing a lot of people on your crew and destroying your spaceship,
something's
you're generally like, okay, well, obviously it's not just a piece of junk.
Yeah, but I love that scene where they're interrogating him, asking him where this part is, and he says, well, I put it on a space pod, but a Kelvin pod is actually what they call them in there. I did, but I didn't. And that actually, because it wasn't that long between him saying that and the reveal of where it was, but for that brief moment in between, I was like, what did he do with it?
Yeah.
Where is he hiding it? And this is only
because
PG-13,
you saw him talk to that girl before, they all had to evacuate the Enterprise.
Yeah.
But I didn't know she could do that.
Yeah, well, there's characters that get talked to in the first two movies that you never see again.
That's true.
Yeah. Major characters that just vanish.
Like the fact that Alice Eve's character, Carol Marcus,
right,
at the end of Into Darkness, is shown on board their 5-year journey, who is absent in this one.
Yeah.
Not that, kind of a problem, because I really like Alice Eve.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen her come back, but,
Yeah. I think that kind of alluded back to the old movies that had the character in it, also mysteriously vanishing. Or it just could be because they couldn't get her for this one.
Possibly. I hope she comes back.
Yeah, she could have been in the background and we just didn't see her there.
She could have.
So, I also love this movie. I think it's the best of the new three.
Which it's, saying something for a lot of people who are fans of the new series.
Well, I think they're doing...
A lot of people really love, Into Darkness. So why would you say this is your favorite one?
Well, for one, to go kind of counter to the people who said this seemed like a 2-hour-long Star Trek episode.
Which I don't understand that critique.
Right, and I don't understand it being a negative thing, because I felt that it was a 2-hour episode, and I felt that's what made it more awesome.
I remember feeling exactly that. I was like, this doesn't feel like a grand movie.
Right.
It feels like an episode. But again, why is that a problem?
That should not be a bad thing at all. I think that because...
It's like saying, the Captain America movies feel like a comic book.
Right.
Okay.
That's kind of their intention. I like the fact that this was it was the same but different. So you have the same cast, you have the same characters, all that. They're going to run into a dilemma. I mean, the moment that they're sent out somewhere, something's going to happen.
Yes.
Most people knew from the previews and from the news that the Enterprise was going to get destroyed.
Yes.
And of course, like I said in the last time we talked about Star Trek, they were going to put themselves in a situation and then get out in the most ridiculous way possible, which we'll get to later.
Man.
So it did all of that, but it did it with new characters, with new aliens. There was none of this J.J. Abrams lying to us thing. Oh no, that's totally not Khan. That will not be Khan at all.
Going back to the pairing, we got to see new different dynamics of how they got out of it.
Right.
Instead of just, Kirk
doing
Kirk things to get
Kirk
out.
blowing the lock off the door and them getting out. No,
it was just a combination of all different things.
Yeah, and I totally called Alien Spit.
You know what?
I called in one of our last episodes. I said that I want them to use something ridiculous like Alien Spit. They used Alien Spit.
What was that?
Scotty's little buddy, whose name I can never remember.
I think he just calls him Wee Man.
Yeah, well, he calls him Wee Man, but he does actually have a name. But yeah, they're trying to open a lock. Because he's got the sniffles.
Right. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Totally technically, I guess that's more like alien snot than spit, but no, I totally called that, and I was very happy to see that happen. But I think that they did exactly what most fans, because it's gotten really good reviews through Rotten Tomatoes and what have you, what most fans wanted to see. They wanted to see their crew that they've grown to know and love the past two movies before this, go out and actually do something. Not just sit on the ship, not just sit around lens flares all day, but actually, go to a planet, get in a fight, do ridiculous stuff, do funny stuff without it being slapstick.
Sure.
Yeah. And, come out in the end heroic.
I will say, as a fan of Justin Lin before this movie, I believe that he can do lots of different action now.
Yeah.
Because I know he had, general, planet Earth action, but I'm glad he was able to do this on a on this scale.
Yeah. Now, it probably did help that the planet they landed on was very Earth-like as far as features. But the scene when the Enterprise gets destroyed, I've seen the Enterprise destroyed multiple times now. This was the best time. I mean, when he says go for the neck, and they just basically chop the thing in half. I mean, it's at the very beginning of the movie, like in the first half hour of the movie, so you know that most of the main, at least all the main crew is going to survive.
Yeah.
They're not going to kill them off that early.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're watching it because you're really getting immersed in it, and you're like, nobody's making out of this alive.
Yeah.
There's no possible way. And of course, they allude back to, was it Generations or in Insurrection? The main parts where the bridge and everything is of the Enterprise, they have to actually detach it in order to, the saucer part, they have to detach in order to safely land.
Oh.
So, but I like the fact that anything that is fan service in there, for one, was well done, and also wasn't so forced that a non-fan couldn't enjoy it.
Yeah, like I said, like if you told me like there were references galore in this one part, I would say, oh, didn't know that, but that didn't stop me from enjoying the scene.
Yeah.
I did, however, get the obvious, fan service when, sadly, we find out that, in real life, Leonard Nimoy has passed away, and in the movie, we find out that his version of Spock has finally died. Which they said, like, right out the gates.
Yeah.
There was no...
And I was really wondering how they were going to do that, because most things that do time travel, if your counterpart dies, then you know when you're going to die, and that totally messes up the timeline.
I did like that part as well.
Yeah.
With writing and Zachary Quinto's performance. You saw the whole movie, for most of it, the parts where he's, stranded on the planet being attacked by Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Had to worry about other things, but you saw it was something bothering him.
Right.
And I like that, just the little things like that.
Well, when you see your race just diminishing.
And then literally you die. Found out you have died, it's kind of weird. But there was a scene at the end where he's going through Nimoy Spock's stuff, and he sees a picture, and it's the Enterprise crew, but it's the original cast. And you don't have to even know Star Trek.
I'm getting goosebumps again just talking.
You don't even have to know Star Trek that well to know, like, wow, that's something.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of moving parts in this movie, both literally with the ships and all that moving parts, but also just, a very emotional scene that carried a lot of weight to them and did so in such a nice way. I mean, if you go back and listen to our pre-thoughts for the movie, you'll see I got a lot of my wishes. I got a Captain Kirk that wasn't like the first two.
That's true.
Because he's this captain who's tired of captaining. He doesn't get the girl. No, that's Scotty's job this time. And even then, we don't exactly know if he gets the girl. We have to wait till part 4 to find out.
If she even comes back.
She better. She has to come back. We can get a white girl who has a doctorate anywhere, but a pure white alien with dance moves like that, because anytime you watched her fight, you were watching her dance.
Yeah.
And with hair like that, I'm very impressed with the hair, by the way. I know I go on about that a bit, but I love the fact that we have an alien character whose hair is not tentacles or dirty-looking dreads or something like that. It's just long, pretty hair. And also I like the fact that she doesn't take crap from anyone.
That's true.
She is kind of like Rey from Star Wars Force Awakens, where we don't really know too much about her past. She tells us more than Rey does. We know that her family's been...
Well, Rey's past being held captive by J.J. Abrams. So,
That's true, yeah. Jayla doesn't have that problem. But she's found solace in the USS Franklin, another Enterprise-style ship that crashed there a long while back. And she likes her captain's seat. And when Kirk and Chekhov come in there, Kirk wants to go straight for the captain's seat. She plops in it, and I love that little scene where Chekhov's like, he likes that seat. Scotty, excuse me, yeah. Chekhov hadn't come yet. Scotty's like, he likes that seat. And just that little comedy like that. And the fact that she didn't move. She just sat there and was like, That was my seat.
Exactly. And speaking of just fan service, like I like that there was fan service, not just original Star Trek fans, but just the film, the 2 films previous. Best thing was when they defeated the alien fleet.
Yes.
By blasting Beastie Boys' Sabotage.
Yes.
And how it deals with the science of it all, you know, like you don't even care.
That's Star Trek science, right?
You don't even.
What that
You just
is.
don't even
It makes
care.
no sense.
It makes no sense, but it happened and it worked because I was worried because you know in the trailer there was a scene with Scotty where he's asking, "Is that music?" And you know we're hearing Sabotage, but in the film we get that scene. Is that music? We hear Public Enemy.
Right.
Which still, I was like,
It's
hey,
still
that's,
great, yeah.
that's still cool.
Yeah.
But, you know.
It did make me a little nervous that they were trying to take, you know.
Yeah, me too, because I was like, well, okay. And then, you know, we get to the part where they're you know, fight the alien fleet, and then they found their trump card. And
it's classical music.
And Sabotage is blasting, and all the alien drones are blowing up because of it. I love that.
And everybody on the ship is just tapping their feet and getting down to the music. And
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was so cool.
I like the beats and the yelling.
Yes.
Yeah. No. And that's that big part where it's like the crew needs to get out of the situation, but they need to do it in a ridiculous way. They need to do it in a way that makes no sense except in the Star Trek universe, and that fit perfectly. And as much as I love Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, Beastie Boys makes a lot more sense than whale songs. I love the whales with Spock, though, and we don't have the Beastie Boys with Spock. And
Yes.
They missed an opportunity there.
There you go. And like I think you mentioned earlier, the big reveal with the actors. So, you know, for those who didn't know or don't know, you know, Idris Elba plays the villain of the movie. And, you know, the big reveal that he was the captain.
Right.
The USS Franklin, and went crazy. And, but, you know, like you were getting at, if you know what Idris Elba looks like, there is a scene that very much hints towards something.
Right.
That he, you know, has connection with the ship because throughout the movie, up until the reveal, you're like, why is the USS Franklin on this planet?
Right, yeah.
And what happened with everybody? Then you find out it was a long time ago, and so you assume, oh, well, they probably died. Or they all got killed when they landed.
Yeah, because you don't suspect anything with Idris Elba because he's basically a big lizard man with his couple cronies.
And then you see the video logs from the ship, and then once you see Idris Elba in the background, you're like,
oh, yep.
Oh,
You see where this is going.
Yeah, and you know, it still played out really well.
But yeah, so Idris Elba's character has found the secret to eternal life.
Yes.
Because the Franklin crashed there like over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And quick side note, we're like in what, the 24th century, 23rd century?
Yeah.
In this one. So in the 22nd century, HD doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, sir.
Because the videos that they're watching from the ship's log are that very 1980s grainy color. It looks like bad security footage is what it looks like. And I know that the main reason...
Then again, today's security footage isn't that great either.
That's true,
so.
too. I know they're mainly doing that to show that it's older than what's going on. But I still found that very funny. I was like...
But his confessional logs were in HD almost.
Yeah.
But not the security footage, because who needs those?
Yeah. But what I don't get is why Eternal Life turned you into a lizard man. And I've not read any of the IDW comics, so I don't know if there's something in there that either tells us straight out or, you know, hints at why it happened.
Or it's Star Trek science, as you say. It just is.
But if I had to find a big gaping hole in the movie, that would be it right there. And you could drive a starship through it.
Yes.
But it did not take away from any of the movie for me.
Like I said, I mean, like, you know, we both said, I know what Idris Elba looks like.
Yeah. Just
because I spotted that, it didn't ruin anything.
Yeah, no.
I almost even thought it was a cooler review.
Yeah. Now, it would have been nice if they would have slipped something, you know, if McCoy would have had, like, some quick thing to say about, oh, well, this happened because blah, 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 and then walk away.
Yeah.
But no, it didn't.
But one of the last things I want to talk about is, I'm glad that they gave Anton Yelchin more to do in this movie.
Yes. It's almost like they knew.
Sadly and morbidly, yeah.
Yeah.
And, for, again, those who don't know, Anton Yelchin recently passed away due to a freak accident. And I was like, of course they would give him more this time around.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they're going to do next movie. They've already slated they're going to make another one.
Yeah.
With more time travel, and Chris Hemsworth is slated to appear.
Yes.
And
Thor and Kirk.
Not gonna lie, I would love that, and I would love Shatner to finally make it.
Yes. It doesn't even have to be a grand appearance, just something.
I thought of he could show up, not like how Nimoy came, in the films as the Spock from the '60s show and the films and all that.
Right.
If Shatner could just play the older version of Chris Pine.
Yeah.
In that universe.
Yeah.
I think the point would be made.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But speaking of Nimoy, there was a nice tribute at the end of the film for both Leonard Nimoy and Anton Yelchin.
Yeah.
So that was really nice.
And I like the tributes in the movie also for Chekhov, because I don't know if it was intentional or not. I'm not going to Google them because I want to live in my own little fantasy world where they were put in there on purpose. But the very last scene where Kirk's doing the toast and he says to our friends who are no longer with us, it felt like that was something that was added after.
I could see that either way.
Yeah. But one that had to
I could definitely see them maybe particularly talking about Leonard Nimoy, because Leonard Nimoy had passed on before when they were doing production of this film.
Yeah.
So that, but it speaks truth for
both, yeah. But then the scene that had to have been for him was when McCoy brings Kirk some whiskey to pre-celebrate his birthday. And I know the 3 glasses are supposed to be for McCoy, Kirk's dad, and Kirk. But the fact that we find out whiskey was Chekhov's favorite drink, that one had to have been post-recorded for it. I mean, there's just... And do not correct me out there. If I am wrong, let me live in this fantasy world, because...
Do it for Anton Yelchin, people.
Because that was a beautiful scene, if that was the case behind it. It was a beautiful scene if it wasn't, but it made it even better.
But, I mean, I'm definitely going to miss his Chekhov. And Abrams have already said... But then again, it's Abrams. J.J. Abrams already said that they have no plans to recast him.
Right.
And, with the story with time travel, you might not even need the entire Enterprise.
Yeah.
I mean, in my head, hopefully they exclude more than just, Chekhov.
Because that would seem a little on the nose there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, if, like, Chekhov and Sulu.
Yeah, they send Sulu on a away mission to White Castle.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I love the way the movie ends, because the most emotional scene for me, which proves my geekiness
for Star Trek,
is the very last scene actually brought me to tears, and it's when they're showing Enterprise A being built. And I was like, why am I crying watching
To which me meant like, cool, we get more movies.
Yeah.
Didn't have the same emotional impact on me.
But if you're a fan of the older movies and the old series and all that, then it totally makes sense. Maybe you didn't have as an emotional reaction as I did, but yeah, I was like, that is an awesome thing. And also, kind of a side note, and I haven't talked to TeeVo about this yet, one thing that I really love about these movies was sitting right in front of me in the theater. There was a couple sitting in front of me and my wife, and the couple had their grandkids with them.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, this is what Star Trek movies are for right here.
See, if we're talking actual viewing experience, mine was, a little marred, because I don't know if the theater I went to doesn't know how to adjust the brightness level of their footage, but... This movie was more Into Darkness, literally, than the actual movie Into Darkness, because it was very dark. People left the movie because we couldn't see.
Wow.
Like, there were scenes in the Enterprise where I had to just squint, and it was only when they were on the planet in the daylight that
I didn't know it was that bad.
It was
yeah,
pretty
that was
bad.
definitely your theater.
But I wanted, I wanted to watch it.
Yeah,
and
or at least hear it.
Exactly. And I got what I needed, and I don't blame that on the movie at all. So that's why I waited until you said that.
Yeah,
because that's a theater thing.
Yeah,
not a movie thing.
Yeah, don't let that change your mind.
Now, if your theater does it too, please tell them immediately.
Yes. Tell them there's a little knob on the side, just turn the brightness.
Exactly. But, again, kudos to the writing. I hope Simon Pegg gets to write another, or I hope, he at least gets to be a story consultant.
Yeah.
He seems to.
He knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Kudos to the cast. I know we didn't mention, specifically Zoe Saldana and Zuhura or John Cho's Sulu, but hey,
both of them kicked ass.
Great all around. Quinto Spock is still there.
He is the new Spock. He's owned that role.
Carl Urban's Bones.
Yeah.
He's still top notch, and hey, Chris Pine.
Yeah, they could not have done better casting these movies.
It was. I remember even not as a Star Trek fan when the first one came out. I thought he was an odd choice.
Yeah.
Just because look.
Yeah.
You look at Zachary Quinto, especially Zachary Quinto as Spock.
He looks
nothing.
like Spock.
You don't know anything about Spock.
Yeah.
He is Spock.
Yeah.
But for me, 2008 when they released promo footage or promo photos and footage of Chris Pine as Captain Kirk, I was like, okay, that's a
little bit of a pretty boy, but
I don't really see Captain Kirk that way, but he is totally, after having watched the films, learning more about, a little bit of the Star Trek world, enjoying Chris Pine as an actor.
Yeah.
I gotta say, he's won me over completely.
That's why I'm not worried about him being Steve Trevor in the new Wonder Woman.
And I like that he's not that kind of guy, because, Steve Trevor really is almost like the damsel in distress.
Yeah.
And he's just like, cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's shown his true colors, and we like them.
We like a lot.
So come back next week and hear us talk about Suicide Squad and possibly Sinister Squad, and probably some more women in comics.
Yes, particularly because it will be the first film adaptation where we get to see Harley Quinn.
Exactly. So until next week, see you later.